Welcome to Western Door Paranormal Studies. My name is Tony Burtis, founder and lead investigator, and this is Supernatural Lake Erie.
Millions of years ago, as the glaciers receded, they carved a network of lakes which is known as the Great Lakes. Great Lakes are known as Huron, Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, Lake Ontario, and Lake Erie. All the lakes have their legends and folklore, and here we are going to look at Lake Erie. Lake Erie borders on Ontario, Canada, New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. The main cities they border are Buffalo, New York, Erie, Pennsylvania, and Cleveland, Ohio. Lake Erie empties into the Niagara River, which of course leads to Niagara Falls, and ultimately to Lake Ontario. The falls is bypassed by the Erie Canal. The waters of Lake Erie were the front line during the War of 1812. The first shots were fired right on the shores of the Dunkirk lighthouse. Commodore Perry's flotilla engaged the British in 1814 in what became known as the Battle of Lake Erie. Like the rest of the Great Lakes, and indeed any large body of water, the lakes and the weather can be tricky, and as a result, the lake is a literal graveyard of many ships and sailors.
The Black Dog of Lake Erie is actually a legend that began in the Welland Canal in Canada. The story goes that a black sheltie was either thrown overboard or fell overboard and became stuck in the waters in the loch, and the crew made no attempt at rescuing the dog. Of course, subsequently, the dog perished. Now, it took those very same crewmen hours to get the dog's carcass from the doors of the loch so they could go on their way. Now, this would begin the bad luck chain of events that would forever be linked with the Black Dog. Now, the story goes amongst the people of the seas that when you see the Black Dog either swimming alongside your boat or actually on your boat, that it's a sign of impending disaster. Some see this as a good luck charm, as they can actually make adjustments to ensure that their journey is indeed going to be a safe one. The Black Dog also has been seen on land. Now, the Black Dog is described, of course, as a large sheltie with burning red eyes. The burning red eyes give it a more ominous look. The Black Dog, however, is not to be confused with a basic hellhound. Now, Lake Erie itself is also known as an extraterrestrial highway, a hotspot for UFO activity. There has been videos and reports of people on boats and on the shores seeing strange objects in the sky that were described as not being of this earth. There are several theories that support this. The first theory would be that some see the UFOs hovering over the lakes and emitting a beam down into the water, quite possibly taking water samples or actually stealing the water. Then the UFOs would actually go in the water, never to resurface. There also have been reports of UFOs coming out of the water, clear out of the blue, and taking off for another destination. UFOs over Lake Erie can be seen in individual ships or in clusters, and the sightings are well documented. Now, Lake Erie is a virtual graveyard of sunken ships. Long before the advent of modern technology, schooners, steamers, and other frigates would go down when the gales of November would strike, taking all the sailors with them. Now, in the waters of Lake Erie, there's reports of what's known as Flying Dutchmans. Now, Flying Dutchmans is a generic term meaning ghost ship, and many ghost steamers and schooners have been seen out on the Great Lakes, encountered by other ships out there and seen by people on land. Now, Lake Erie also has its reports of many other paranormal bogies, most that would fall into the cryptozoology category. Of course, any lake of any size has its reports of sea serpents, and Lake Erie is no different, although a lot of them could possibly be giant lake sturgeon and giant eels. Lake sturgeons out in the depths of the lake can grow as big as 20 feet, and of course the catfish out here can get really, really big. But that's not to say that there might not be our own version of Nessie out here in the Great Lakes. Now, along Route 5, there also have been reports of Bigfoot-type creatures. Although these haven't been seen along the lake shores like the area where I am, deeper along Route 5, there have been reports of Sasquatch-type creatures. Now, Lake Erie itself, consequently, and I find it interesting, actually goes along what's known as a spook highway, Route 5. There are a lot of famous haunts that go along the route that are reported and some that aren't. Phantom cars have been reported along Route 5. The Dunkirk Lighthouse, where the first shots of the War of 1812, is a haunted location. The very famous Pigman's Road is off of Route 5, as is the Dock of the Bay restaurant, and many, many other sites along the shores that I'm sure have their paranormal secrets. Now, Lake Erie, Route 5, Spook Highway, call it what you will. It's also what's known as a power point. The Native Americans, of course, would hold an area like this here very sacred, and would have had their ceremonies and, of course, their own legends to tell about Lake Erie and Route 5. Now, what we're going to conduct here is what's called the Lake Erie Stakeout. Now, what the Lake Erie Stakeout means is we're going to go out pretty much by Silver Creek, and we're going to stalk out the Great Lakes area to see if we can catch any evidence of any ghosts, UFOs, Flying Dutchmans, anything that might be associated with Lake Erie. We're going to make an attempt to see if we can catch any concrete evidence of any of the haunts along supernatural Lake Erie. It was on the night of August 9th, 1841, about 30 miles off these shores, that the Steamship Erie sank at a loss of about 200 lives. It mysteriously caught fire just off of these shores, like I said, about 30 miles out there. Now, this is the area where I'm going to choose to do the Lake Erie Stakeout. Now, again, what I'm trying to pick up on here, possibly some residual effects from the Steamship Erie tragedy, and it's going to be a clear night, so possibly we can get some UFO activity. Now this here, even though it's the Lake Erie stakeout, of course we know it's impossible to actually investigate Lake Erie. That's like saying, we're going to investigate Rhode Island or something and think we can catch all the paranormal activity on Rhode Island. This is just more of a stakeout to see if something happens and to see if we can document anything. So it's not exactly like a regular ghost hunt or UFO watch per se, but perhaps we'll get lucky and we'll be able to pick up on something. Just want to point out that the waves out there right by that flag are just acting in a very erratic manner. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that any of this is paranormal by any stretch. Seeing that it's located right by them two markers could indicate that there's some kind of a natural phenomenon causing the waves in just this area here to ripple almost against the current and very different from the rest of the waves on the lake. I just find it odd. I don't know if that's because there is a severe undertow there. Maybe that's where the lake just drops off all of a sudden. But these water formations are interesting nonetheless. As I said in the beginning, the idea of investigating Lake Erie in itself as an entity is virtually impossible. It's a vast sea. You could go out there on a boat and would never be able to investigate the entire thing or take the entire Seaway Trail all the way to the Niagara River, all the way past Erie, Pennsylvania, and there's still no way to truly investigate Lake Erie itself. That's why this was more of a attempt at a documentary to tell the history of Lake Erie and some of the haunts that are related to it. However, it turns out we weren't as alone at the Lake Erie stakeout as we thought we were. Needless to say, that means we did come up with some paranormal evidence to back up that spirits do like to hang around the shores of Lake Erie. Now, we were in the area where the historical marker is, where the Steamship Erie sank. Now, there's railroad bridges in the back of us. We were just simply filming a train going over the trestle for basically a really good shot. And as I reviewed that, there seems to be a female voice that tries to point our attention to the train and mentions the train by word. Give it a listen. Now, the area where we were filming in was in Silver Creek, which is a little distance away from Pigman's Road. Nevertheless, there still seems to be a spirit that tends to give us a reference to the Pigman, as a voice seems to say Pigman. Now, if it says something different, that's always a possibility, but it does seem to... Yeah, that was a car. Let's try that again. Now, the area we were filming is Silver Creek. Now, that area is not too far away from Pigman's Road. In fact, it is right along Supernatural Route 5. Now, we were there. We weren't looking for anything to do with the Pigman. But, nevertheless, a spirit seems to say the word Pigman. Does this spirit recognize us from when we did the investigation on Pigman's Road? It's a possibility. Give it a listen.
I know what that was.
Well, that sums it up for the Lake Erie Stakeout video. I hope you learned a lot about the geological formation of Lake Erie and a lot about the historical aspect of Lake Erie, not to mention the haunts and ghost stories and other paranormal folklore that go along with this vast area. And I hope you were able to enjoy the paranormal evidence we got as an added bonus while filming this video.